Life can be kind of difficult. You don't really know where you're headed. Nobody gives you any kind of guidance in this world. You have to find your own path. When you have no talents, you have no skill, life is a series of endless confusion. You end up in a circle and you don't know where the hell you are. It's a brutal world. If you're replaceable, you will be replaced. So the only defense... Life can be kind of difficult. You don't really know sometimes where you're headed. Nobody kind of gives you any kind of guidance in this world, right? And they don't tell you when you graduate college, go ahead, go Robert, you go study this. This is what, this is what your brain is suited for, et cetera, et cetera. You have to find your own path. And so for me personally, I spent years in the wilderness. I know I want to be a writer, but I can't figure out what the hell I'm going to write. So I leave college and I try journalism because I have to make a living. I have to support myself, and I don't really like it. It doesn't suit me. You write an article and then a week later it's forgotten. Nobody reads about it. It wasn't a good fit. So I quit. I wander around Europe trying to write a novel with my backpack. I live in London. I live in Paris. I lived in Ireland. I lived in Greece. You name it. I taught English in Spain. Trying to write a novel, I had no discipline. I couldn't do it. It didn't work, and I started to get depressed. Then my dad isn't well. I decided I'm going to move back to Los Angeles. Hey, I'm going to get a job in Hollywood, right? That'll be good. I'll make a ton of money, and I'll be writing, and et cetera. How glamorous, how sexy, movie stars, starlets knocking on my door, et cetera. Okay, terrible, terrible fit, because I'm a control freak. I don't like people coming in and changing everything I say. And I don't like conforming, and I don't like compromise. I didn't want to have to lower my standards to what they were asking me to do. It was a terrible fit. All right, now comes the chance. I meet this man, Yost Elf, and he asked me if I have any ideas for books. And I kind of improvised the 48 Laws of Power. The point of my long-winded story here is I had spent 18 years or so acquiring high levels of skill. All of that time, slowly by slowly, brick by brick, I had developed real level skill. I was acquiring skills, not even aware of it. When you develop that skill, when you're serious about it, because I was very serious about writing, you change your brain. Through thinking, through developing skills, you literally change matter, you change your brain. So something non-material like thoughts can literally change material things like the wiring of your brain. You learn skills, you're changing your brain, you're changing the matter of your brain. When you have no talents, you have no skill, life is a series of endless confusion. You hit this road, you go here, then something else, you go here, then you go here, you end up in a circle and you don't know where the hell you are. When you've got skills, zoom, you know where to go. Power is pure psychology. Pure psychology. And what I mean by that is the CEO of a company, he doesn't get there based on, it's not like baseball, whereas balls, you have a good batting average or OPS. All right, you're going to get in the lineup. They're going to bat you in the cleanup spot. Okay, life isn't like that. It's not about metrics. It's not about things that they've actually done. It's about psychology, right? People rise to positions of power because they know how to play the game, and they know how to play the game of psychology. They know how to appear. They know how to play the optics. They know how to intimidate. They know how to say less than necessary. They know all the psychological little gambits. This is the game of life, the game of power. The rules are a little bit nebulous. But here's how you play. You play by mastering these little psychological bits. One of them is your reputation. So you have to it's like a brand. You're known for something. You're known for being strong. You're known for being self-confident. You're known for being Machiavellian or whatever. And there's a certain kind of, shape to it. People judge on appearances. They don't judge on the reality of who you are. They don't know who I am or who you are. They judge on what they see and how we appear. And if those appearances, they want to have something consistent that they can grab onto. They want to say something simple. that guy is funny and that's who he is. You know, this guy is that. You want a very simple formula. And if you can't be consistent, if you're all over the place, if you're changing your ideas, you're conservative, then you're liberal, blah, blah, and you're trying to tack with each wind to get power, yeah, you'll get some power that way, but it'll make you look weaselly. It'll make you look distrustful, and people won't like that, and your reputation will be one of somebody who has no soul, who has no core. You're replaceable, you will be replaced, right? So if in your job you're in your 20s and you're doing something that other people could do, by the time you become 28, they can hire somebody 24 when they hired you, but for less money. They will do that right away. It's a brutal world. So if you're replaceable, you will be replaced. So the only defense against that is to be irreplaceable in this world. And the good news is that you are at your core irreplaceable. There is something strange and weird about you. The combination of variants in your chromosomes, it's mathematically impossible for it to ever be replicated. Yes, the variations are marginal. The differences aren't great between you and me, but those little differences are the differences between me liking this kind of hip-hop music and you liking a different kind of hip-hop music, right? It creates your inclinations, it creates your tastes. And so what the game of life involves is knowing your uniqueness, is knowing who you are, is knowing what makes you weird and what makes you odd, okay? And the problem is that we're social animals, and the pressure continually on us is to fit into a group, is to be like other people, to have their ideas, to have their values, to have their tastes, to dress like them, okay? And that happens when you're young, you're in your adolescence. We all go through that phase. I went through that phase. But if you keep on that track when you're in your 20s and on, which is happening a lot today through social media, you're going to lose that sense of what makes you odd and different. I compare it to a voice. When you're very young, that little voice in you is going, Robert, you should be a writer. It's telling you something. And as you get older, you don't hear it anymore because you're hearing all the other voices. You're hearing your voices of your parents, the teachers, the culture around you, your peers, your friends, telling you this is what's cool, this is what's not cool. And that little voice becomes completely drowned out. And so you don't know who you are anymore. And you're afraid, particularly young people today, I mean, maybe it's always been that way, are so afraid of being different. They're so afraid of being odd. But look at all the powerful people in this world. Look at your Elon Musks. Look at your celebrities in entertainment, in business, in politics. They're one of a kind. They have I hate that word, but it's like a brand. They're different. They stand out for something that's truly different. You know, even Albert Einstein, there's nobody else like Einstein. There's nobody like Da Vinci. Okay? That's where your power lies. You have that potential. It's just you're not putting the effort into it. You are lazy. You want to fit into the group. You want to conform because it's easy. But your oddness, what makes you weird, what makes you different, that little strange quirk in how you want to dress yourself, that little strange quirk in your musical tastes, that little quirk in the food that you like to eat, that is who you are. Those are signs from deep within, from your core, or from your soul, this is who you are. And if you lose that, not only are you not going to be successful in life, you will also lose yourself, and you will be unhappy, you'll be alienated from who you are. And you can get away with that when you're young because you're happy, you look good, you've got energy, things are going right. You get into your 30s and you're like everybody else, and you don't know who you are and you don't know what you like anymore, and you're just following the trends. You start to get depressed and you start going down this rabbit hole, and things can turn really ugly. Being aware of who you are, what makes you different, and being comfortable with it. And so you're going to have moments where you're not comfortable with it and you want to conform and you want to be like other people. And, you know, you went through that and I went through that in adolescence in particular, on through the 20s. You make some changes to things because you think it's cool, but you keep coming back. You come back to these things because they're so strong in you.
Yep.
And you can't help it, and they give you relief, and they give you comfort, and they're who you are. And so it all comes down to, do you come back to these things, or do you change because of the pressures of other people? What it meant to be human, we're a very creative species, right? We have language, we have consciousness, we have immense powers. Those powers developed under the pressures of necessity, of having to get things done, of having to survive in a very brutal, ruthless world where a leopard could pop out tomorrow and eat me, where there were dangers all around, where food was scarce. And under the pressure, we had to think, we had to be creative, we had to be inventive, we had to be strategic. The human brain evolved under immense amounts of pressure, okay? That's how the brain works. You accomplish things that would normally take you months, you do it in days because you feel that pressure. You take away that pressure and you don't know what to do. And I've got like 3 years, I could do this or that. Another, you just wander around, you're lost, you have no energy, you have no focus. You know, you're maybe playing video games, maybe you're watching porn, you're kind of distracting yourself in the moment. But it's but your energy is just being dissipated in like 20 different directions. So your brain needs pressure. It needs constant pressure. And stress and pressure is not a bad thing. We have this thing where we feel like stress is bad. It's bad for you. Bad. You know, you need to relax, man. You need to chill. Stress will kill you. No, being bored will kill you. But I'd rather die under the stress than be bored and have nothing to do. Okay? So feeling that pressure, it makes your eyes pop open. It makes your brain focus. It makes you alert. It makes you want to live. It makes everything seem exciting to you because you've got to get things done. Success when you're in your 20s is the worst thing that can happen to you because you have no discipline. You have no perspective. You think it's just going to keep going the way it is. You're not aware of all the dangers out there. You don't have life experience enough to realize how things can turn on you very quickly. If I had been given the chance to write the 48 Laws of Power when I was in my 20s and I had success, it would have ruined me. I probably wouldn't have had success. I wasn't ready for it. I had had so much failure until I was essentially 39 years old, pushing 40, that I had perspective, that I know what it's like to fail. And so when I had success, it wasn't like, wow, I'm the greatest thing that ever happened. I can just live off this forever. My next book's going to be fantastic. No, I have a little voice in me that says, Robert, you failed so many times, you're probably going to fail again, right? You've seen so many people in Hollywood who started off hot and bombed. I had experience to know that I can't take this for granted. I have to be careful. I have to be strategic. I have to build on it and not let the success go to my head. You have to be comfortable with who you are and with your masculinity. So the word masculine has now got like this negative connotation around it. My idea of masculinity growing up was a man who was in control of himself, who wasn't mean, wasn't pushing people around, who was decent, who treated women well. So treating women well is a masculine virtue, is a good thing. It comes from a position of strength. You're not insecure about your masculinity. You don't have to prove that you're a man. You can respect women, and respecting them is a sign of your strength, is a sign of being secure in your masculinity. You don't need to put other people down to make yourself feel better. That all these things that you feel naturally are negative. They're only negative if you can't control them. So self-control is a very masculine quality. You're able to control yourself. You're able to control your passions. You're able to not talk too much if you don't need to talk too much. I'm not saying that women don't have, that the opposite is wrong. These are things that men naturally have because of their biology. You know, you have to be smart, and you have to be in control of yourself, and you have to be disciplined,